Rain hammered the windshield as Ryan gunned his rig down the moonlit highway, a sealed trailer thundering behind him. But when masked men ambushed him and pried open the doors, crates of cash and damning documents spilled out, proof of a conspiracy that could bring a city's most powerful man to his knees. Now Ryan faced a choice that could either save him or destroy him. Ryan had always felt more alive behind the wheel of his 18-wheeler than anywhere else. The rumble of the diesel engine beneath him, the endless ribbon of highway stretching toward the horizon, and the sense of freedom that came with each mile. It was all he ever wanted. He started driving fresh out of high school, and within a decade, his reputation soared. He was known across the Midwest as a reliable, skilled driver who could handle any cargo in any weather. But everything changed one rainy night on I-74, when a car swerved into his lane. Ryan tried to brake, but his rig jackknifed it, igniting a chain reaction crash that left 2 motorists dead. Though the official report cited bad weather as a factor, whispers of reckless driving and rumors of Ryan's exhaustion spread faster than the flames. The insurance company pinned the blame on him, and soon no reputable carrier would hire him. Haunted by the faces of the victims and weighed down by lawsuits and medical bills, Ryan spiraled. He sold his house to pay off debts and moved into a shabby roadside motel, where the scent of stale smoke clung to the curtains. His days were spent scanning trucker forums and cold-calling old contacts, desperate for any job. His evenings blurred into nights of cheap whiskey and regret. Every time he closed his eyes, he relived the accident, the screeching tires, the explosion of glass, and the cries of the injured. He kept a worn photo of his daughter, Emma, on the motel nightstand, a painful reminder of what he'd lost in the divorce that followed the crash. He promised himself he'd find a way back to her, to prove he wasn't the monster people believed him to be. 3 years passed in this purgatory until one evening, Ryan's old friend and former dispatcher, Marty, called with a lifeline. Marty's voice was low, almost conspiratorial. "Got a job for you, Ryan. One night, one haul. Cash payment, no paperwork. All you have to do is pick up a sealed trailer in Chicago and drop it in a warehouse outside Kansas City. You don't look inside, you don't ask questions. 10 grand, straight to your pocket." The offer was more than Ryan had made in months. The idea of settling his debts and maybe sending money to help Emma ignited something in him. He tried to push away the nagging sense of unease. Desperation had a way of dulling instincts. That night, Ryan found himself sitting in the cab of a battered Peterbilt he'd rented with the last of his savings. He watched the loading crew secure the massive sealed trailer, noticing how none of them made eye contact. Rain pounded the pavement as he rolled out of the freight yard, the neon lights of Chicago blurring through the downpour. His hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. He told himself it was just nerves from being back on the road after so long. But deep down, he sensed this job was different. The darkness seemed thicker than usual, the highway quieter, as if the world was holding its breath. As he merged onto the interstate, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every set of headlights in his mirrors looked suspicious. Every overpass loomed like a trap. But the thought of the cash waiting at the end of the run kept him going. He pictured paying off the loan sharks who kept calling, imagined the relief of finally having a clean slate. He fantasized about driving to his ex-wife's house, handing her an envelope of money for Emma, and seeing even a flicker of respect in her eyes. This one haul could change everything. He pressed harder on the accelerator, eager to leave his past behind him in the storm. Hours passed in a blur of wet asphalt and darkened truck stops. Ryan kept the radio off, unwilling to break the tense silence inside the cab. Every mile felt heavier than the last, and with each passing exit, his thoughts grew darker. He wondered what could be inside the sealed trailer that was worth so much secrecy and cash. He thought about how Marty had insisted he never open it, how he'd lowered his voice when mentioning the drop-off point. He reminded himself that a man in his position didn't get to ask questions. He just delivered the load, took the money, and disappeared. Near midnight, the rain eased, but fog rolled in like a ghostly blanket across the highway. Ryan's headlights pierced the mist, illuminating empty fields and distant silos. His eyelids grew heavy, but adrenaline kept him alert. As he crossed into Missouri, He realized he hadn't seen another vehicle in nearly an hour. The solitude felt suffocating. He pulled into a deserted rest stop to splash water on his face. The parking lot was empty except for a lone payphone, swinging slightly in the breeze. The moment felt eerie, as if the world had emptied out just for him. Back in the cab, Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay on schedule. No detours." His hands went cold. He hadn't told anyone his route, and yet someone knew exactly where he was. He tried to convince himself it was just Marty checking in, but the tone felt different, more like a command than friendly advice. Ryan shoved the phone into the glove box and started the engine. He was back on the highway within minutes, but the fog felt thicker, the night darker, and every shadow seemed to move in the corner of his eyes. The open road, once his sanctuary, had become a sinister labyrinth, and though he couldn't yet see it, Ryan had just crossed the point of no return. Ryan had barely driven another hour past the foggy rest stop when a pair of headlights appeared in his mirrors. They were distant at first, bouncing on the uneven highway, but soon they grew closer, glaring bright enough to force Ryan to squint. He shifted in his seat, uneasy. The road ahead was a narrow stretch of Route 16, dark, deserted, hemmed in by thick woods on both sides. There was nowhere to pull off safely, nowhere to hide. He tightened his grip on the wheel and pressed the accelerator, but the headlights only drew nearer, weaving side to side as if taunting him. Suddenly, the lights surged forward, and a pickup truck roared up alongside his cab, its engine growling. The passenger window rolled down, revealing masked men with dark eyes barely visible beneath black knit caps. Before Ryan could react, the pickup swerved, bumping the side of his trailer, sending violent vibrations through the entire rig. He fought to keep control, tires skidding dangerously close to the soft shoulder. Horn blaring, he yelled curses into the empty night, but the pickup persisted, forcing him to slow. They wanted him to stop, and they were willing to kill him to make sure of it. A second masked man climbed onto the hood of the pickup and leaped onto the trailer's rear ladder with practiced ease. Ryan glanced in his mirror in horror as the man clung to the doors, pulling a crowbar from his belt. Sparks flew as metal struck the padlock. Ryan swerved hard, trying to shake him loose, but the man held on with terrifying determination. Within seconds, the lock snapped. The trailer doors swung open, and a gust of night air caught loose papers, whipping them into the darkness like a blizzard of white. Crates began to shift violently inside the trailer as Ryan's desperate maneuvers sent them crashing into the doors. One crate split open, and bricks of cash spilled onto the highway, fluttering across the road like leaves. Another crate burst, scattering bundles of documents bound with twine, their pages flapping wildly, some blowing past Ryan's windshield. He caught glimpses of official-looking seals and signatures but couldn't make sense of them amid the chaos. All he could tell was that he was hauling something far more dangerous than a routine load. The masked men realized it too. They climbed into the open trailer, frantically trying to grab crates and toss them into the bed of their pickup. But Ryan's erratic swerving, the wind tearing through the open doors, and the shifting cargo made it nearly impossible for them to hold on or retrieve much. Ryan slammed on the brakes, tires screaming as the rig skidded across the slick highway, gravel spraying. The pickup lost control, fishtailed wildly, then spun out and crashed into a roadside ditch with a heavy thud. One man crawled from the wreck, limping into the woods, while the others disappeared into the darkness. Breathing hard, Ryan kept the truck rolling forward, doors swinging wildly behind him, papers still scattering. He knew he couldn't stop here. The highway was too exposed, and whoever sent these men wouldn't give up so easily. He needed to find a place to hide, to collect himself, and to figure out what he'd gotten himself into. A sudden noise snapped him from his thoughts, the distant whine of an approaching engine behind him. Ryan realized the pickup might not have been alone. There could be more pursuers coming to finish the job. He slammed the trailer doors shut as best he could while still rolling, the broken lock hanging uselessly, the doors rattling with every bump. Climbing back into the cab, he floored the accelerator, tires screaming as the rig surged forward. The trailer doors banged wildly behind him, scattering the last loose papers into the night. His breath came in ragged gasps as he gripped the wheel with white knuckles, adrenaline roaring louder than the diesel engine. The highway became a blur of dark asphalt and yellow lines as Ryan zigzagged through backroads, desperate to stay off major routes where roadblocks or more attackers might lie in wait. His phone buzzed again on the passenger seat. "You're late, ETA?" Another message flashed seconds later. "Don't be stupid, Ryan." The words felt like icy fingers around his throat. He couldn't answer. Every instinct told him the men behind these messages were the same ones who tried to kill him on Route 16. His mind raced. He knew he couldn't trust the police, they could be compromised. He couldn't risk contacting the job's middleman. The only chance he had was to find someone outside the system who might believe him. He thought of old friends, former coworkers, but none seemed safe. Then he remembered a reporter he'd met once at a truck stop diner. Stella Allen, the only person who had treated him fairly after his crash. If anyone could help him bring the truth to light, it was her. His gas gauge hovered near empty, forcing him to pull into a dimly lit station along a lonely two-lane road. He kept the engine running as he filled the tank, eyes flicking nervously to every vehicle that passed. When a black SUV slowed by the pumps, his heart nearly stopped. He ducked behind the cab, hand on the revolver tucked in his jacket. But the SUV continued on, disappearing into the foggy night. Climbing back into the cab, Ryan caught his reflection in the mirror. Pale, eyes hollow, jaw set like stone. He looked like a man teetering on the edge of collapse. He exhaled shakily, realizing he couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, he would have to make a choice. Finish the delivery, bury the evidence, and live in guilt, or find a way to expose the truth and face the deadly consequences waiting for him in the shadows. The dawn broke in streaks of dull gray, the sky bruised with remnants of the night's storm. Ryan's rig rumbled along a cracked county road, the trailer rattling behind him as he searched for a safe place to pull off and regroup. His duffel bag, stuffed with documents he barely understood, sat in the passenger seat like a ticking bomb. Every time he glanced at it, he felt the weight of the truth inside, a truth powerful enough to topple powerful men, or get him killed before he could speak a word. Exhaustion clawed at him, but he couldn't stop yet. He checked his phone, hesitating before powering it back on. Within seconds, it lit up with dozens of missed calls and new messages, each one colder and more threatening than the last. "Where are you? Your daughter's school starts at 8. Think about that. Last chance. Finish the job." The words stabbed him deeper than any blade could. They knew about Emma. The job was no longer about a quick payout or clearing his debts. It was now a choice between protecting his daughter and standing up for the truth. Ryan's mind raced. If he tried to hide, they'd find him. If he turned over the evidence the wrong way, corrupt cops might bury it, and him with it. As he drove, he replayed every conversation he'd ever had with Emma, her laughter echoing on video calls, the way she asked when he'd come see her again. His chest tightened. He couldn't leave her a legacy of cowardice, but he also couldn't let her become collateral damage. He needed a plan. He pulled into a diner on the outskirts of a small town, parking the truck where he could see it through the window. Inside, the scent of burnt coffee and greasy bacon filled the air, a strangely comforting reminder of his life before the accident. He chose a booth in the corner, ordered black coffee, and dug a battered notebook from his pocket. On a paper napkin, he scribbled possible moves. Deliver to police? Too risky. Call the FBI? Maybe, but could he reach someone he could trust? Go to the media? The thought lingered. It was risky, but it might be the only chance to make the evidence public before it disappeared. A news broadcast flickered on the diner's old TV. The city's mayor, smiling in a press conference, brushing off rumors of a corruption investigation as political games. The sight made Ryan's blood boil. He imagined the crates in his trailer, each one a nail in the coffin of that smug smile. He knew what he had to do. He pulled out a crumpled business card. Stella Allen, investigative reporter, the journalist he'd met after his crash, who treated him with a rare kindness. He remembered how she said, "Call me if you ever have a story worth telling." He just hoped she still meant it. Ryan stepped outside to make the call, scanning the parking lot. A pair of black sedans sat across the street, engines idling. He dialed Stella's number with shaking hands, praying she'd pick up. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a tired voice answered, "Stella Allen." "Stella, it's Ryan Dalton. I have something you need to see. I don't know who else to trust. They're watching me." Her voice shifted instantly from sleepy to alert. "Where are you? What do you have?" "Evidence, crates of it. Contracts, cash, names. It's all in my trailer." She hesitated. "Can you meet me? Somewhere safe." Ryan scanned the sedans again, saw figures moving inside. An abandoned truck stop off I-35, near mile marker 212. Midnight. Midnight. "I'll be there. Ryan, be careful." Ryan hung up just as one of the sedans pulled out, slowly rolling toward the diner's entrance. He ducked inside, heart pounding, and paid his bill with shaking hands. He raced to the truck, starting the engine as the sedan's door opened and a man stepped out, scanning the diner windows. Tires squealed as Ryan tore out of the parking lot, his rig fishtailing before finding traction. In his mirrors, he saw the sedans give chase, headlights bobbing on the uneven road. The next hours were a blur of desperate maneuvers. Ryan took county backroads, sometimes doubling back to lose his pursuers. Twice, he narrowly avoided roadblocks, pickup trucks with men standing in the beds, rifles slung over their shoulders. Each close call reminded him how deeply these men were connected, how many were willing to kill to keep the mayor's secrets buried. But Ryan felt something besides fear, a flicker of resolve. He wasn't going to let them win. As the sun dipped low and dusk bled into night, he finally arrived at the meeting point, a rusted truck stop long abandoned, overgrown with weeds. He parked the rig near the darkened fuel pumps, engine idling low. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine. He checked his gun, an old revolver he'd kept since his trucking days out west, and loaded it with trembling hands. If they came for him here, he would not go down without a fight. His phone buzzed. Stella's message appeared. "I'm 10 minutes out. Stay hidden." Ryan tucked the phone in his jacket, scanning the dark highway beyond the truck stop. Headlights appeared in the distance, but it wasn't Stella. It was a convoy of black SUVs, engines growling as they slowed near the entrance to the lot. Ryan's chest tightened as he realized he'd been tracked. He looked down at the duffel bag beside him, the key to everything, and knew the time for running had ended. Tonight, he would either bring the truth into the light or be buried with it in the dark. Ryan's chest heaved as he darted between rusted shipping containers at the abandoned truck stop. Gunshots cracked behind him, bullets sparking off steel walls and ricocheting into the night. He had abandoned his rig minutes earlier, knowing the open cab made him an easy target, and now sprinted desperately for cover as dark figures fanned out across the lot. The black SUV's headlights sliced through swirling dust, casting moving shadows that danced with every muzzle flash. A voice barked orders in the dark. "Find him! Bring him back alive, or don't bring him back at all." Panic clawed at Ryan as he slipped into a narrow gap between containers. He gripped his revolver with trembling hands, breathing ragged, the duffel bag still strapped to his chest like a lifeline. Another round of shots rang out, metal pinging inches from his head. He dove behind a pile of old pallets, heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. Just as one of the gunmen rounded the corner, raising his rifle, new lights burst through the night, red and blue strobes flashing wildly, sirens wailing. Dozens of patrol cars tore into the lot, gravel spraying as state troopers poured out, weapons drawn. A familiar beat-up sedan rolled in behind them, skidding to a stop, and Stella Allen emerged wearing a bulletproof vest. She spotted Ryan crawling between containers and pointed urgently, "They're after my source. Secure the lot." The attackers hesitated for a split second, surprised by the overwhelming response, and the troopers took advantage, advancing with disciplined precision. A furious exchange of gunfire erupted, the night erupting in flashes of light and deafening cracks. Ryan crawled from his hiding place, trying to reach safer ground, but a stray bullet grazed his shoulder, searing pain lancing through him. He stumbled, nearly dropping his revolver. But two troopers appeared at his side, dragging him behind a squad car. As officers secured the area, Stella rushed to Ryan, kneeling beside him. She checked his bleeding shoulder, then looked him dead in the eyes. "I've got you, Ryan. It's over." He stared at her, dazed but alive, clutching the duffel bag to his chest. She signaled two detectives, who carefully took the bag and began cataloging the contents. Stacks of cash, official contracts, and incriminating documents. One detective whistled low. "This is everything we need." Ryan's voice cracked as he asked, "How did you get here so fast, with all this backup?" Stella helped him sit up, glancing around as troopers cuffed the last gunman. "I've been investigating the mayor for over a year. I knew he had his hands in dirty money, but I could never get solid proof. Marty called me 2 days ago. He knew exactly what was in that trailer and said he was going to hire a driver desperate enough to take the job. He wanted to get the evidence moved quietly so I could expose it, but he underestimated how quickly the mayor's men would catch on." Ryan's eyes widened. "Marty set this up?" Stella nodded grimly. "Marty used you because you were off the grid, no contracts, no tracking, no official record. He thought it was the only way to smuggle the evidence out of the warehouse before the mayor could destroy it. But once you got on the road, the mayor's people realized what was happening. That's why they came after you so hard." Ryan let out a shaky breath. It all made a terrible kind of sense. Marty wasn't trying to betray him. He was trying to use Ryan's invisibility as a blacklisted driver to save the evidence. Nearby, police were loading crates of recovered documents into armored vans. Reporters arrived in news trucks, cameras already rolling. Stella wiped blood from Ryan's temple as she explained, "I've worked with the state police on other corruption cases before. They trust me. And tonight, they came because I told them you had what we needed to finally bring the mayor down." Her voice softened. "You didn't just save yourself, Ryan. You saved this city." As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight pierced the fog, painting the scene with an eerie calm. The attackers were led away in handcuffs, paramedics treated the wounded, and officers cordoned off the truck stop as a crime scene. Stella stood beside Ryan as he watched his trailer, now guarded by state troopers, and the weight of what he'd endured began to lift. She rested a hand on his shoulder. "You were braver than anyone could have asked." Later that day, Ryan sat in a hospital room, his shoulder bandaged, watching live news broadcasts replay footage of the raid. The mayor had been arrested in his mansion just hours after the evidence went public, charged with bribery, racketeering, and conspiracy. Images of city officials being led out of offices in handcuffs filled the screen. Stella's voice narrated the report, describing how one driver's courage had exposed a criminal empire. His phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. Hesitant, he answered, and heard Emma's voice on the other end, small and hesitant but unmistakable. "Daddy, are you okay?" Tears welled in his eyes as he replied, "I am now, sweetheart. I am now." His ex-wife came on the line next, voice wavering but grateful. For the first time in years, there was hope in her tone. A week later, Ryan was released from the hospital. He walked out under a bright morning sun, the air fresh and warm on his face. Stella waited outside, leaning against her car, smiling wide. "You ready for your next journey?" she asked. Ryan looked out at the open highway beyond the hospital gates. Though he still bore scars inside and out, he knew he had a second chance. And this time he would drive forward not in shame, but with pride and the promise of a better future. In the end, Ryan chose truth over comfort, risking everything to expose corruption that would have stayed buried. Would you have made the same choice, or taken the money and run? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Embrace the Journey for more stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary tests of courage. See you in the next video.